Have you ever felt completely paralyzed by anxiety? As if your own mind were a prison you couldn't escape. Do you know someone who lives trapped in an endless cycle of worry? Someone you wake up at 3 a.m. with your heart racing, thinking about all the bad scenarios that could happen. Someone who freezes in an important meeting because their mind simply freezes. Someone who has everything to be happy, but lives in a constant state of mental tension. Maybe you know someone like that, or maybe that person is you. However, there is an ancient philosophy, developed by warriors who faced death every day, that can transform your mind into an unshakable fortress. I'm not talking about positive thinking. I'm not talking about affirmations or manifestations. I'm talking about a system tested for centuries that teaches you to maintain absolute mental clarity even when everything around you is crumbling. The samurai practiced Shikata ga Nai, the radical acceptance of the inevitable. They lived according Gaman, dignified perseverance through suffering, and they practiced FUDŌSHIN, an unmoved mind. This system goes against the culture of toxic positivity, and it will require you to do something that seems impossible at first. Accept that you control almost nothing in your life, until you realize that this acceptance is precisely what sets you free. Before I show you exactly how this system works through the story I'm about to tell you, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment on what mental battle you're facing right now. Anxiety, procrastination, fear of the future. You don't need to explain in depth, just one word. I want to know what brought you here. Thank you very much for your attention. Now, let's begin. Chapter 1. The Day the Mind Broke. Today I'm going to tell you the story of a man named Hunter. Hunter was 35 years old, and his mind was silently crumbling. On the outside, he was the guy everyone envied. Digital marketing manager at a tech company in Austin, Texas. 5-figure salary, modern apartment downtown, smiling profile picture. Perfect life for social media. But inside his head there was absolute chaos. He would wake up at 5:30 a.m. with his heart already racing. Even before opening his eyes, his mind was already racing. He checked emails on his phone while still lying in bed. 47 unread emails. Each one seemed like a small bomb about to explode. In the shower, my mind wouldn't stop racing. What if the launch fails? What if the boss doesn't like the campaign? What if I get fired? What if I can't pay the rent? What if? Breakfast? I didn't have time. Or rather I did, but my stomach was always so tightly knotted that eating seemed impossible. On his way to work, he listened to productivity podcasts. He needed to optimize every second. He needed to be better, faster, more efficient. At the office, he was the first to arrive, last to leave. Meeting after meeting, Slack bombarding him with notifications. Each ping was like a cortisol injection straight into his vein. At night, exhausted, he would collapse on the sofa. He scrolled through Instagram, seeing other people living perfect lives. He scrolled through LinkedIn, seeing other professionals being promoted. Comparison was poison, but he couldn't stop drinking. He tried to sleep at 11 p.m., lay in the dark with your mind spinning in endless loops. He replayed the day's conversations, anticipated the next day's problems, constructed catastrophic scenarios that never happened but seemed absolutely real at 2 a.m. He was taking melatonin, tried guided breathing, listened to white noise. Nothing worked. When he finally fell asleep, it was 3 a.m. 2.5 hours later, the alarm rang again. And the cycle began again. You need to relax, his friends would say. Take a vacation, suggested the online therapist he sometimes consulted. Do yoga, recommended his coworker. But Hunter couldn't relax, because relaxing meant losing control, and losing control meant everything would fall apart. So he tried to control himself more. He made more lists. He installed more productivity apps. He woke up earlier. He cut out sugar. He cut out alcohol. He started running. He started meditating. And the more he tried to control it, the more anxious he became. Because life has this inconvenient characteristic, life doesn't care about your control plan. Chapter 2. The Meeting That Changed Everything. It was on a Thursday during a presentation meeting for investors that Hunter's mind finally said, enough. He had worked on that presentation for 3 weeks, slept 4 hours a night, revised each slide 50 times, rehearsed alone in the mirror. He was ready. Technically perfect. The meeting began. Hunter opened the presentation. First slide, second, third, everything flowing smoothly. Then he got to slide 4, and his mind froze. His heart began to race. His hands started to tremble. The room began to spin. He looked at the faces of the investors and suddenly couldn't process anything anymore. The company CEO was standing beside him. "Hunter, are you all right?" He wasn't there. For the first time in 35 years, Hunter had a full-blown panic attack in public, in front of 6 investors, in front of his boss, in front of the entire team. I'm sorry. He left the room. He locked himself in the bathroom. He sat on the cold floor. And he cried. He wept from utter exhaustion, from surrendering to the fact that his entire total control system had spectacularly failed at the moment that mattered most. The CEO knocked on the door 10 minutes later. "Hunter, open up. Let's talk." They went into an empty room. The CEO, a man in his 50s named Richard, didn't seem angry. He seemed worried. "How long have you been like this?" "Like this? On the edge, on the verge of collapse." Hunter wanted to lie, to say it was just momentary stress, but he didn't have the energy to lie anymore. "About 2 years, maybe more." Richard nodded slowly. "I've been exactly where you are 10 years ago. I ended up in the hospital thinking I was having a heart attack. I was 42 years old. The tests showed that my health was perfect, but my mind was killing me." "And what did you do?" "I went to see a guy, a therapist, different. He taught me something that completely changed my relationship with anxiety, with control, with everything. It might sound strange, but it worked. Do you want his contact information?" Hunter had nothing left to lose. "I want to." Chapter 3. The Japanese Therapist. 3 days later, Hunter was sitting in the therapist's office. Dr. Takahashi entered. A man around 60 years old, gray hair, erect posture, deliberate and calm movements. He didn't look like a therapist. He looked more like a martial arts master. "Hunter, tell me, what brought you here?" Hunter told everything. The constant anxiety, the sleepless nights, the panic attacks, the feeling of losing control. When he finished, he expected to hear about breathing techniques, about medication. Dr. Takahashi didn't take out a notebook. He didn't take notes. He simply said, "Tell me something. How many hours a day do you spend trying to control things you can't control?" Hunter paused. "What do you mean?" "You worry about what your boss will think, but do you control what he thinks?" "No, but I can do a good job and..." "You don't control what he thinks. You worry about whether you'll get promoted. But do you control the company's decision?" "Not directly, but no, you might do a good job, but the company could promote someone less qualified than you just because they find that person more likable. You worry about the economy, the market, what might happen in the future. Do you control the future?" "No." "So why do you waste your mental energy trying to control what cannot be controlled?" Hunter remained silent, because that was exactly what he did. Every single day. He spent 90% of his mental energy trying to control things completely beyond his control. Dr. Takahashi leaned forward. "Hunter, the samurai of feudal Japan faced death every day. A poorly blocked sword and they died. A moment of distraction and they died. They lived in the most extreme danger zone you can imagine. And do you know how they dealt with it?" "As?" "They developed 3 philosophies that I'm going to teach you. But first I need to know, are you ready to accept something that goes against everything modern culture has taught you?" "What?" "That you're not in control, and that this is the best news you've ever received." Chapter 4. FUDŌSHIN, the Immovable Mind. "I'm going to tell you a story," said Dr. Takahashi. "There was a samurai named Miyamoto Musashi. He was challenged to a deadly duel by the best swordsman in Japan, a man named Sasaki Kojiro. The duel was scheduled for 8 a.m. on a remote island. Kojiro arrived on time, prepared, focused, ready to kill or be killed, but Musashi didn't show up. 9 a.m. nothing. 10 a.m. nothing. Noon, Nothing. Kojiro was seething with rage. He paced back and forth. His mind was in chaos. When Musashi finally appeared hours late, casually paddling a canoe, Kojiro exploded. "You have no honor." And here's the crucial detail. While Kojiro was trembling with rage, his breathing rapid, his muscles tense, his mind clouded by fury, Musashi was completely calm, his mind still as a mountain lake. This mental state is called FUDŌSHIN. The duel lasted seconds. Musashi won. Not because he was stronger, but because while Kojiro had been overwhelmed by emotion, Musashi kept his mind still. Hunter heard the story but didn't understand the connection. "Dr. Takahashi, with all due respect, I'm not facing sword duels. I'm having panic attacks. You are in a duel every day against your own mind, and you are losing because you are being hijacked by your emotions. Anxiety arrives and you let anxiety completely control you. Fear arrives and you are paralyzed. Stress arrives and you react as if you were being attacked by a lion, but I can't control it when the anxiety comes." Exactly. You can't. And that's the point. FUDŌSHIN isn't about not feeling anxiety. It's about not being anxious. Controlled because of anxiety, it's about observing anxiety like you observe clouds passing in the sky. It's there, you see it, but you're not swept away. Dr. Takahashi stood up and went to the window. "Do you see that bamboo out there? When the strong wind comes, the bamboo bends, but it doesn't break, because bamboo doesn't resist the wind, but it moves with the wind yet keeps its roots firm. That's FUDŌSHIN. Your anxiety is the wind. It will come, it will always come, but you don't need to break. You need to learn to bend without breaking." Hunter felt something strange. For the first time in years, someone wasn't telling him stop feeling anxious or think positive. They were saying, feel, but don't be overwhelmed. How do I do that? Practicing, starting small, very small. Chapter 5, The Practice of the Still Mind. "I'm going to give you an exercise," said Dr. Takahashi. "When you feel anxiety coming on, and you probably will even today, do this. Stop. Do absolutely nothing for 10 seconds. Just observe. Observe the anxiety as a scientist would observe an interesting phenomenon. Ask yourself, where do I feel this in my body? Chest, stomach, throat? Just locate it. Don't try to change it. Just observe. Then breathe, once, deeply, and only then, consciously decide how to act." Hunter thought it was ridiculously simple. That's all? That's all, but it's much harder than it seems, because your instinct will be to react immediately. Anxiety arrives, and you want to do something urgently to stop it. But that doing something urgently is what keeps you trapped. Those 10 seconds create a space between stimulus and response, and in that space, that's where your freedom lies. That afternoon, Hunter returned to work. He was at his computer when he received an email from the CEO. "We need to talk about the project, my office, now." His body reacted instantly, heart racing, hands sweating, his mind already creating 1,000 scenarios. "I'm going to be fired, they're going to fire me, I'm screwed." But then he remembered. He stopped. For 10 seconds. He observed. The fear was in his chest, a pressure, a tension, but that was all, a physical sensation. It wasn't reality. It was a reaction. He breathed. Once. Deeply. And he consciously decided, "I'm going to go up and find out what he wants. Creating mental scenarios isn't going to change what he means." Hunter went upstairs. The CEO wanted to talk about reassigning the project to ease the pressure on him. It wasn't a dismissal, it was help. And there, Hunter understood. 90% of his suffering came from reacting to fear as if it were reality. But between fear and reality, there was a space, and in that space was FUDŌSHIN. Chapter 6, Shikata ga nai, What Cannot Be Changed. 2 weeks later, Hunter returned to the office. He had practiced the 10 seconds religiously. It didn't always work. Sometimes anxiety still overwhelmed him, but he was getting better, slowly. "How are you?" asked Dr. Takahashi. "Better, but I'm still anxious about a lot of things, especially about the future, about what could go wrong." The doctor nodded. Tell me something. Do you have control over what will happen tomorrow? Not entirely, but... Do you have control over what your boss decides? No. Do you have control over the economy, over the market, over whether the company is doing well or poorly? No. Do you have control over whether you will get sick, whether you will have an accident, how long your parents will live? No. Hunter began to see where this was going. So why do you waste energy worrying about things you can't control? Because I feel I need to prepare, to anticipate problems. There is a difference between preparation and concern. Preparation is action. You do something concrete to deal with possibilities. Worry is anticipated suffering. You suffer for something that hasn't even happened and may never happen. Dr. Takahashi took a piece of paper and drew two circles, a small one in the center, a large one around it. This small circle represents the things within your control, your actions, your responses, your values, your effort. This large circle represents the things outside your control. Basically everything else. Most people spend 90% of their energy on the large circle and 10% on the small circle. That's why they live exhausted and powerless, because they are trying to control the uncontrollable. The Japanese have a phrase for that, Shikata ga nai. It literally means cannot be avoided, but philosophically it means something much deeper, radical acceptance of what is beyond your control. Hunter looked uncomfortable. But isn't that giving up? No, it's exactly the opposite. It's about freeing up wasted energy to focus on what he can to do. Chapter 7. The Atomic Bomb and Philosophy. Dr. Takahashi leaned back. I'm going to tell you about the greatest example of Shikata ga nai in modern history. August 6, 1945. An atomic bomb explodes over Hiroshima. 80,000 people lose their lives instantly. The entire city is vaporized. 3 days later, Nagasaki, another 70,000 lose their lives. What do you do when your entire city vanishes in a flash of light? When everything, every house, every street, every person you knew, turns to radioactive dust? You can spend your energy on anger, on lamenting, on unanswered questions. Why us? How is this fair? What did we do to deserve this? Or you can do what the survivors did. Shikata ga nai. It happened. It cannot be undone. Lamenting will not rebuild the houses. Anger will not resurrect the dead. So what can be done? And they rebuilt. In 13 years, Hiroshima was back. In 1964, Japan hosted the Olympics. The country that had been reduced to rubble became one of the world's greatest economic powers. How? Through a fundamental philosophical choice. Don't waste energy lamenting what cannot be changed. Direct all your energy toward what can be done. Hunter felt the illusion of control shattering within him. So, I simply accept that I control nothing? You accept that you are not in control. Almost nothing, but the little that you control, your actions, your responses, your character, that you control completely. And that's all you need. Dr. Takahashi wrote something on a piece of paper and handed it to Hunter. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This isn't Japanese, it's the serenity prayer. But it's exactly Shikata ga nai. This prayer exists in so many cultures because it's a universal truth that we all eventually discover. Suffering comes from struggling against reality. Chapter 8. Gaman, Persevering with Dignity. A month later, Hunter was improving. He was practicing FUDŌSHIN. I was learning to let go of what I couldn't control. But life, as always, brought a test. Your father called. Cancer. Stage 3. Aggressive treatment needed. Hunter sat in his car in the work parking lot and cried. All the mental practice he had done seemed useless at that moment, because the pain was too real, the fear was too great. He called Dr. Takahashi. I can't do this, it's too much, it's too heavy. Come here now. An hour later, Hunter was sitting in the same room, but this time he couldn't stop shaking. My father has cancer. I know, you told me on the phone, and it's terrible. It's frightening, it's unfair. Dr. Takahashi didn't try to downplay it. He didn't say everything would be all right. He just validated the pain. How do I deal with this? with Gaman. What is that? The third philosophy, and perhaps the most difficult. Gaman means persevering through suffering with dignity. It's not about suppressing emotions. It's not about pretending it doesn't hurt. It's about feeling completely, but not being broken. Hunter shook his head. I'm not strong enough for this. You are, because you're already doing it. You're here. You came seeking help instead of falling apart. That's Gaman. Dr. Takahashi went to the garden and returned with a small bonsai tree. Do you know how these trees survive? They are deliberately exposed to harsh conditions. Little water, lots of sun, aggressive pruning, and that doesn't kill them. It makes them stronger, more resilient, more beautiful. Your suffering won't break you, unless you let it. Gaman isn't about not suffering, it's about suffering without losing your dignity, without losing yourself. Will you cry? Yes. Will you be afraid? Yes. Will you have horrible nights? Yes. But the next day you will get up. You will be there for your father. You will do what can be done. That is Gaman. The following months were the hardest of Hunter's life. His father's treatment was brutal. Chemotherapy that left him too weak to get out of bed. Radiation that burned his skin. Bad days. Worse days. Hunter visited the hospital every week, and every time he arrived, he practiced the three philosophies. FUDŌSHIN. When anxiety tried to consume him, he observed the fear. He didn't deny it, but he didn't let it control him. SHIKATA GA NAI when he wanted to scream, "Why my father?" He couldn't control the cancer. He could only control its presence. Gaman when the burden seemed unbearable. He would cry in the car after visits, but he always came back. He was always there. And something surprising happened. His father realized, one day, too weak to speak much, he held Hunter's hand and said, "You're different, son. Like this? You used to always be tense, always in a hurry, always on your phone. But now, you're present, really present. It's everything I've ever wanted." Hunter needed to leave his room to cry, because he realized the crisis had given him what he always wanted but could never get. Real presence, real connection. 3 months later, against all odds, the scans showed that the tumor had shrunk significantly. The treatment was working. When the doctor delivered the news, Hunter didn't jump for joy. He didn't shout. He just took a deep breath and whispered, "Shikata ga nai," because he had learned that life isn't about controlling outcomes. It's about being present regardless of the results. Chapter 9. The Silent Transformation. 6 months after the first consultation, Hunter was a different person. Externally, people noticed. He wasn't tense all the time anymore. He wasn't on his cell phone during conversations anymore. His shoulders weren't permanently hunched. He breathed differently. He moved differently. But the real transformation was internal. He was still a little anxious. Sure, but now when the anxiety came, he didn't panic about being panicked. He just observed. Things that used to overwhelm him. Urgent emails, criticism from his boss, project problems. He now processed them differently. First, he asked, "Is this within my circle of control? If yes, action. If not, Shikata ga nai." Did the work get easier? No. The work remained difficult, but he was no longer fighting against the difficulty. He was navigating through the difficulty. And the strangest thing was, he was more productive now, because he wasn't wasting 70% of his mental energy on worry. He was using that energy on real action. In his final consultation with Dr. Takahashi, Hunter asked, "How do I know if I've truly changed? How do I know this isn't temporary?" The therapist smiled. "Tell me, when was the last time you had a panic attack?" Hunter thought. "It's been 4 months? And when was the last time you lost a night's sleep because of anxiety?" "Last week, but I eventually slept, and the next day I was fine." "You are not cured. Cure is a lie we sell. You are transformed. You have the same emotions, but a different relationship with those emotions. And that relationship is everything." Dr. Takahashi took 3 bamboo cards and wrote on them, "FUDŌSHIN, pay attention to your emotions. Don't be overwhelmed by them. Shikata ga nai." Accept what you cannot control. Act on what you can control. Gaman, persevere with dignity. Suffering does not define you. Take this with you. When things get tough, and they will, read this. Remember that you have a system now. You're no longer adrift in the sea of your own mind. You have an anchor. Chapter 10. The Final Test. 2 years later, Hunter was at a presentation again. Same room, same investors, same pressure. But he was different. Before the presentation began, he felt the anxiety rising, his heart racing slightly, his hands sweating. Familiar signs. Instead of panicking about panicking, he simply observed FUDŌSHIN. Anxiety, you're here, that's normal. This is a high-pressure situation. My body is preparing itself, but I'm not you. Thoughts began to surface. What if I freeze up again? What if they don't like it? What if... He cut it, Shikata ga nai. I don't control what they're going to think. I only control my preparation and my delivery. I've already prepared. Now it's just a matter of delivering. The presentation began. He spoke for 30 minutes, clearly with presence. Were there moments of nervousness? Yes. But he didn't try to hide it. He just acknowledged it and continued. In the end, one of the investors said, "Best presentation we've seen this year. You have our investment." Later in the car, Hunter didn't celebrate wildly. He didn't post on Instagram. He just sat in silence for a moment and felt Gaman, gratitude for the journey, respect for the process, acceptance that there would be good days and bad days, but he had the tools to navigate both. A neuroscientist at Stanford University, who studies emotional regulation, has discovered that the practice of observing emotions without judgment, what we call meta-awareness, strengthens the prefrontal cortex and reduces amygdala reactivity. Essentially, you train your brain not to be hijacked by emotions. This is exactly what the samurai discovered centuries ago through meditation and discipline. A clinical psychology researcher explains, radical acceptance, accepting what we cannot control, is one of the strongest predictors of mental health. Patients who develop this capacity report significantly lower levels of anxiety and depression, not because their circumstances have improved, but because they have changed their relationship with those circumstances. A study on resilience in populations exposed to trauma found that the ability to persevere with dignity through suffering, what we call dignified endurance, is associated with greater long-term psychological well-being. It's not about not suffering. It's about maintaining a sense of self and purpose even during suffering. But here's the part nobody tells you about true mental strength. Hunter didn't stop there. In his 3rd year, he began teaching these philosophies to his team. When someone was overwhelmed, stressed, on the verge of collapse, he didn't offer generic advice like relax or think positive. He asked, what part of this is within your control? And he helped the person draw the 2 circles. And always, the person discovered that they were expending all their energy in the large circle and 0 in the small circle. His team became the most productive in the company, not because they worked longer hours, but because they didn't waste energy on pointless worry. They focused on what they could control. The CEO noticed. What are you doing with your team? They seem different. I taught them to stop fighting reality and start working with reality. Can you teach the rest of the company? And so Hunter became something he never imagined. A mentor, not of productivity, not of time management, but of mind management. And the most surprising thing? His father, who survived cancer, witnessed the entire transformation. And one Sunday during a family lunch, he said, "You know I'm proud of you, right?" Why? Not because you're successful, but because you've discovered something that most people take a lifetime to discover. That peace doesn't come from controlling the outside world. It comes from mastering the inner world. Hunter's story isn't unique. It's universal. Because we're all struggling with the same things: anxiety, fear, the illusion of control, the exhaustion of trying to control the uncontrollable. But here's the truth. No one tells you. You already have everything you need to build unwavering mental strength. It's not outside of you, it's inside. FUDŌSHIN. It's not something you acquire, it's something you reveal. The ability to observe emotions is already within you. You just need to practice. Shikata ga nai. It's not giving up. It's liberation. When you stop fighting what you can't control, you free up infinite energy to act on what you can. Gaman, it's not about being strong. It's about being human. To suffer and not be broken. To persevere with dignity, not because you are special, but because you choose to. And here's the most important thing. It doesn't have to happen overnight. Hunter took 2 years. You might take 3 or 5, it doesn't matter. Because time will pass anyway. In 5 years, will you be in the same place, stuck in the same mental patterns? Or will you be someone who has transformed suffering into wisdom? Samurai weren't born with an immobile mind. They practiced every day for years, until it became part of who they were. You can do the same, starting today. With a simple practice, the next time you feel anxiety coming on, stop for 10 seconds. Just observe. Don't try to control it, just observe. Those 10 seconds can change your whole life, because in them, you discover that you are not your emotions. You are the observer of emotions. And that discovery is the beginning of everything. If this video touched you in any way, if you recognize something of your own mental struggle in the Hunter story, I invite you to do something. Comment below which of these 3 philosophies resonated most with you. FUDŌSHIN, SHIKATA GA NAI, or Gaman. You don't need to write a long text, just one word. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Turn on notifications, because every week I bring you content like this, ancient philosophies applied to modern life. Real knowledge that transforms, not superficial motivation that lasts 3 days. And if you'd like to delve even deeper into these Japanese philosophies, I invite you to watch one of the videos currently appearing on your screen. You're sure to gain valuable insights. Remember, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to start and keep going. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. See you in the next video. Be present. Walk with honor. Follow the path.